Welcome to The Explainer. You know that voice in your head? The one that's, well, not always so nice. That's what we're tackling today, the inner critic. We're going to dive into what it is, the real damage it causes, and, this is the best part, how you can actually rewrite that inner script. Okay, so has this ever happened to you? You walk out of a meeting and immediately your brain goes, I totally blew that. Everyone thinks I'm an idiot. Yeah? If that sounds familiar, you are so not alone. That right there, that's your inner critic. And it feels super automatic, right? But here's the thing, and it's really good news. These are learned patterns. And anything that's learned, well, it can be unlearned.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by properly meeting this inner critic. Then we'll get real about the damage it's doing. We'll also talk about that whole toxic positivity trap, why just think happy thoughts doesn't actually work. And then we'll get to the good stuff, the actual tools you can use to rewrite the script and build some real self-compassion.
Okay, first things first, let's really get to know this inner critic. I mean, if we're going to tackle this voice, we have to understand what it even is. Because it's not just some random mean thought popping up. Nope, it actually follows some very specific kind of predictable patterns.
Yeah, and there's a technical term for these patterns. Therapists call them cognitive distortions. It's a fancy phrase, but think of it like this. They're basically faulty mental shortcuts. These unhelpful thinking habits our brains just kind of default to. The tricky part is they feel 100% true in the moment, even when they're totally not based in reality. And these distortions, they're the gasoline on the fire for your inner critic.
So what do these distortions actually look like in real life? We'll check these out. This comes from research from places like the Therapy Group of DC and the Mayo Clinic. We've got catastrophizing, I made a typo, my career is over. Or all or nothing thinking. If I'm not perfect, I'm a complete failure. Sound familiar? Or how about personalizing, where it's always your fault? Or my personal favorite, mind reading, where you're just sure you know what someone else is thinking. These are the classic moves of the inner critic. Look, this inner voice, it's not just harmless background noise. It doesn't just stay cooped up in your head. Oh no. This kind of persistent negative self-talk has real, actual, measurable consequences. We're talking about your mind and your body. And check this out. This number is huge. 42%. Research shows that just by practicing emotional acceptance, which is pretty much the exact opposite of self-criticism, people in recovery can see a 42% reduction in depression. I mean, that's massive. It's just incredible proof of how much power we have to change things just by shifting how we talk to ourselves. And it doesn't stop there. The benefits just keep stacking up. We're talking about studies from the Mayo Clinic that show a direct line between a balanced mindset and your physical health. A longer lifespan, lower rates of depression, being more resistant to getting sick, better heart health, even just being better at coping when things get tough. So yeah, taming that inner critic, it's not just some feel-good exercise, it's a straight-up health goal. Okay, so when we feel bad, what's the first thing we hear? Or even tell ourselves? Just be positive, right? Good vibes only. Well, it turns out that trying to just force positivity can actually backfire. Big time. It leads to something researchers call the toxic positivity trap. And while it usually comes from a good place, it can be a really harmful strategy. And this really shows the difference, right? On one side, you have toxic positivity. That's all about just shoving down your real feelings. It's like putting on a happy mask, and it just makes you feel ashamed for having totally normal, valid emotions. But on the other side, you've got emotional acceptance. And that's about acknowledging your feelings, just letting them be there without judging them. That way, you can actually process them and figure out a real path forward. That is how you build genuine resilience. All right, so if just being positive is a trap, what do we do? This is where we get into the good stuff, the practical how-to part. Let's pull out the toolkit and look at some real, evidence-based ways to make a change. A lot of therapists swear by this method, and it's awesome because it's so simple. It's called the 3 C's. So step 1, catch. You just pause and notice that negative thought as it pops up. No judgment, just notice it. Step 2, check. This is where you put it on trial. You ask it questions. Hey thought, are you 100% true? What evidence do I actually have for or against you? And finally, step 3, change. And this is key. You're not changing it to some fake, super positive thought. You're just rewriting it to be more balanced, more realistic. And here's what that looks like in the real world, with some great examples from the Mayo Clinic. You can see how this works, right? It's not about pretending something isn't hard. It's just a perspective shift. So instead of I've never done this before, which is a total dead end, You reframe it to, this is a chance to learn something new. See that? Or instead of, this is way too complicated, you try, okay, maybe I can tackle it from a different angle. That little shift, that's reframing, and it makes all the difference.
Okay, so the 3 Cs, that's a fantastic tool for in-the-moment situations. But for real, lasting change, we need to go a bit deeper. We need to build a new foundation. And that foundation is self-compassion. Honestly, it's the thing that makes all the other tools work so much better.
And let's be really clear about what self-compassion is and isn't. This is not about having a pity party or making excuses for yourself, not at all. It is a fundamental shift in your relationship with yourself. Think about it. How would you talk to a friend who is going through a tough time? You'd be kind, supportive, understanding, right? Self-compassion is just about learning to offer that same kindness to yourself.
Dr. Kristen Neff, who is one of the leading voices on this, breaks it down into 3 main parts. First, self-kindness instead of self-judgment. So being warm and understanding with yourself instead of critical. Second, common humanity instead of isolation. This means remembering that messing up and feeling pain is part of being human. Everyone goes through it. You're not alone. And third, mindfulness instead of over-identification. That's just being able to notice your painful thoughts without letting them completely take over.
So, in the end, it all comes down to this one question. Yeah, your inner critic is loud. It might even be the loudest voice in your head. But is it right? By learning how to catch that voice, challenge it, and then change it with a little bit of compassion, you get to prove that it doesn't have the final say. You do.